Hey everyone, this is Joe Newman speaking, and welcome to Beyond the Pages. We're always going to be trying to be interesting enough to capture your imaginations and bring you new, out-of-the-box, thought-provoking stories, hopefully, that you'll enjoy. Some of them you may have heard about, some of them might be new to you, and some you may have missed out there and could catch up with some of the info we're going to bring you. Um, I'll be interviewing authors and new authors who are published with articles, authors who have not been published yet. Whatever I can find that's a good story to bring you. Right now, I'm going to focus on technology. This is our second show on artificial intelligence. I'm calling this show "Who's Afraid of AI?" I did this show. My first version of this was not too long ago. I think it was about a week or two ago. It's posted on CBRA Facebook page among some other outlets. And I'm going to bring on my panel here, my stellar panel of three very great technical gentlemen that I'm very pleased to have on this show. So let me add. Number one is Mr. Don McCauley. Hey, Don.
How you doing?
And good. He is the owner of Synthetic Ghost Industries, 3D artist, project designer, multimedia artist, a career in the arts, focus on design and fabrication. He does some phenomenal commercial stuff too, physical and digital assets. So welcome, Don. Glad to have you back. And next is my buddy, Don Musilli. Don is the owner of Light World LLC. He is a provider and instructor of 3D printing systems and services, among a lot of other things. In fact, Don even started the Inglewood, Florida Incubator Center to market and teach 3D printing to schools for kids 8 to 18 years old. And I've seen some of his teaching at work, and it's pretty extraordinary. So welcome, Don.
Matt, how you doing, Joe?
Good. All right. Other than this crazy weather around me right now. And then finally, last but not least, Mr. Casey Ruark. He is the director of IT of Traca Systems. He's a professional network systems administrator specializing in building IT infrastructure with a variety of hardware and software. And I have to mention, without further ado, that Casey also, in his part-time, is a stand-up comedian. I've seen him, and he's pretty darn funny. And Casey has also written a manuscript that I've read and I've interviewed him about. So he's looking for a publisher too for that manuscript, which we're kind of working together, hoping to get some publisher to get interested in that book. It's a pretty compelling life story that he experienced. So I wanted to put that out there too. Today, yeah, good to see you, man. Today, I'm pulling my list here. For this show today, what I did was I sent each of my guys here 2 stories that I kind of picked ad hoc from different places online. Articles having to do with new technology. Primarily, I was aiming for AI stories and information for the show. So what we decided to do is that I'm going to lead off probably with Don Musilli. Each of us have two articles. We'll see how far we get. We'll go around with one each in the first round robin, and we're going to be, the way we converse is we're not going to hold questions to the end. We'll just rapid deployment here. Fire away. Musilli, lead off.
Yeah, you had asked me about 2 things. One was biotechnology and China. And right. Interesting, I had a conversation with my twin brother, Ron, who lives in Ohio, that used to work with United Healthcare. And we talked a little bit about the medical healthcare system and how strange and crazy it is. But one of the things in biomedical technology is that out of the 5, biggest technology areas, biotechnology is really being spearheaded by the Chinese. They are doing a lot of work in that area. It seems as though other medical companies, like AstraZeneca, some of the big farm guys are actually doing work with them by funding some of their research because they have the people there to do it, as opposed to here in the U.S. where we're actually losing some of our researchers. We talked about that earlier. Biotechnology is really becoming a huge area because they're looking at, being able to actually eradicate cancer, do things that are just phenomenally challenging right now. And there's a lot of money. It goes $2, $3, $4, $5, $6 billion of funding going into these programs.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to see. The U.S. does have a lot of big farm companies, but the pharmacies here in the U.S., just like back with the AI and the technology, a lot of that stuff has shifted elsewhere. I mean, Middle East, Asia, North America. The Canadians are doing a lot of work in biomedical technology. So there's some areas there that we really need to get our teeth into, because in 4 or 5 years we're going to be in the second, third, fourth, fifth tables in this technology, and the companies and the countries that have that are going to have a real advantage. So it's interesting. I mean, it's just as much as manufacturing has left the U.S. This is also going the same direction. It's a global international market. If you take all the country names away, everything is basically business. It's all these businesses out there that are basically trying to find ways to increase their health and wealth. Companies are looking for ways to be on top of things. Two things that are being used in biomedical technology, AI is certainly one of them. The other one is additive manufacturing. We're doing a lot of work now in 3D printing with stem cells, 3D printing with all types of materials. You're seeing a lot of that technology really ramping up. Unfortunately, most of the companies that make those printers are not here in the U.S., but it is definitely an area where we're looking at. So that was the one topic you had. The one thing I wanted to mention is I'm sure you guys remember this. Do you remember when the Japanese invented just-in-time manufacturing? Remember just-in-time manufacturing?
Well, I do anyway. These guys are young.
I was born when the Earth's crust was still cooling, so it was probably back then. It's the same thing. The Japanese, South Koreans, and Chinese are now merging to do some things together. And if you think about those countries, I mean, South Korea, all the OLED, nanotechnology, Japanese with all the manufacturing technology, the Chinese have all of those things. You're seeing some of these companies group together to do more research. And so we need to really push that. And the educational side, as we talked about earlier, is definitely part of that. So just my comments on some of those things, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that.
Yeah, no, yeah, that's good. But do pharmaceuticals, are pharmaceuticals right in the middle? Because that's very important right now, because we're finding out that we farmed out in the U.S. We farmed out so much of our pharmaceuticals. If they want to bring them back in, which people want to bring them back into we don't have the supply chain to do it right now.
Yeah,
it concerns me that a country like China is manufacturing the components that are going into these pills that I take. So I don't know where that's going to go, but that's my concern. It doesn't sound. I can't believe that only 13% I've heard 13% of our components that go into our medications are made in the United States.
A lot of things are made in Ireland, England, Scotland,
Canada too,
other countries. So keep in mind, gentlemen, when we sent all that R&D overseas, and I'm going to come back to the company part of it again. Follow the money. Follow the money. When I'm investing in Eli Lilly, I want to make sure that my stock's going up every year, right? And so whatever they have to do that, if they have to raise prices on their pharmaceuticals, that's fine, because there's a nest egg of collusion that goes on between the pharmaceutical companies, the insurance companies, the hospitals, the doctors, and it's all tied together. And so what happens is we have a next quarter thinking. The other countries have a 4 or 5 year thinking process, which is something we used to do here a long time ago. Now everything is next quarter, next 6 months. And so we don't take the time to do the R&D and spend the money like Elon Musk did with the rockets, right? He had 14 to 15 explosions before he had the first rocket that actually worked. He was willing to fail forward. We don't have those kinds of mentalities anymore in the technology sector, at least here in the U.S. They want to be able. That's why a lot of companies won't go public right away, because they get stymied by the investors, unless they get a nice nest egg
it's a vicious cycle, because the big giant corporations in this country. If I look at my stock portfolio, you got mid caps and you got the big caps is what you got to choose from. Unfortunately, I may hate some of those companies that are the big caps, but I want them in my portfolio because they're and what do? They go cheap. They went overseas for one big reason: save money. That's what they want to do. So you're giving away a lot of things when you do that. But me, looking at my stock portfolio, I want Eli Lilly to give me 10% return every 3 to 6 months or whatever. I don't have an answer for that, but I wish I did, because you're giving something away, but the pressure is so intense to keep the stock and the dividends up that it's a vicious cycle.
You're right. And I think one of the things, and then I'll cut this short, about going to talk to Casey a second, but one of the things that I realized is that, coming back to working with the students and working with the young adults, you have to understand that the point of reference for most people is digital. Their point of reference is not mechanical. And because of that, there are very few people coming up now that actually want to be in the mechanical side of the equation. They want to be in the digital side of the equation. Casey's in the digital side of the equation. You're in the digital side of the equation. Don, to a certain extent, the digital side of the equation. Me, with additive manufacturing and AI, am somewhat in the digital side, although I like the manufacturing part. So we pick an enemy like China and say, well, it's bad. But I was over there 20 years ago when they were just riding bicycles and they had very few cars, and now they've got very few bicycles and a lot of cars. And we gave them all that technology, and then they developed all that technology, and then they created all those R&D centers, and we just let it happen. And
they stole a lot too. Don't forget.
And so now we're at that point where sometimes you have to work with the people you don't like to be able to get up further ahead.
Yeah.
I've always said, if you want to get ahead, you have to find people that are smarter than you. So that's what they've done. So you got to look at it from an unemotional, non-political point of view, because when you do that, you skew everything, and you have to look at it from the simple point of view that it's based on dollars, whether it's crypto dollars or U.S. dollars, whatever dollars you're going to use. It's based on dollars, and those big pharmaceuticals, although they are not the largest companies on the stock market, you've got Nvidia, you've got Meta, you've got Microsoft, you got all those companies up there that are Saudi Arabia, Aramco. Those are not manufacturing companies. Those are all digital companies, and the pharmaceuticals are actually below that. But I get on my high horse because I have conversations with the parents of the kids that come to my camps, and they say, look, I want to tell you, your kids have these sets of experiences and they have these capabilities. Don't stymie them. Push them in that direction, and let them run with it, because we need those people. And so, Don and I just made the comment about teachers, and teachers, it's very tough out there. So, anyways,
that's I appreciate that, because I did pick those two articles, knowing the discussions we've had before and seeing you in action, and looking at when I walked into your place the one time, his living room was like a factory of printers and all kinds of stuff. He had I pointed to one or two of them over there, and that one's in China, and that one's in. There's a guy in Denmark who are the Dutch got the best nozzles and blah blah blah. And I said, "Do you have any American stuff here?" And Don says, "Yeah, I got one over there. That's $1,600. That's the same one from China. It's $300.
That works better.
Still got that one here. I think you said that time, but both of them are equal. Well, what the hell? My nephew's in 3D printing right now. What am I buying them? Bamboo? The other one it was at Anycubics or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's Chinese or not, but my buddy Steve, just an example, guys, is he was going to get the bamboo for $1,400, something like that. He loved it. And then he went to your place, looked at it. And you said, this one's 700 here, equal capability, any cubics. And he loves that thing. You know, he uses it. It fits his purpose. It is so often all about price, you know, and my friend my nephew doesn't have a lot of money. He can afford that to add on to his printers over there. He can't afford the American printers, what's left of them really. But that's just a symptom of, you know, things that our politicians and our big businesses did. And it grinds me, but I don't have an answer for it. You got to compete. And now it's global. I mean, it's truly global, you know.
One quick, I had a couple of guys people contact me all the time that want me to represent their product line. And I had a young Chinese guy from Sichuan. I did a Zoom meeting with him the other day because he wants me to look at their resin printers. And actually, resin printers, I've played with them before, but the resin printers have gotten really good and the materials have gotten much better. And they've really expanded their technology in that area. So, you know, I still represent Lulzbot, which is the one company in the U.S. that makes printers, and they moved from Colorado to North Dakota, which was, in my estimation, a bad choice. But anyways, their machines now are $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, and they don't work anywhere as well as the cubics I got in my other room. And they haven't made any jumps in technology. They keep trying to make machines bigger. It's still the same machine, making it bigger, not making it quite as fast. They've gone to 1.75 millimeter filament. They've tried to do a few things, but they still use the same Cura software. It's really sad to see a company that was really avant-garde back in 2010, 2011, to get to the point where they're now becoming more like a Conestoga wagon in the field of technology. And it's really, I don't know what to tell you. It's just really a shame, but that's what we're seeing.
Don McCauley, you're nodding a little bit there. What's your thoughts on what Don is saying there? Because you use the 3D printers. I've seen them at your place for some pretty really cool stuff that you do in your laboratory there.
Sorry, you cut out for about 15 seconds there, but
no, I was just saying if you had any comment on that. I saw you nod your head about, and I know you know 3D printers. I've seen those in your factory there.
Oh yeah, no, I've got resin and do filament FDM printers. No, same. I have to echo the same thing. You know, for the price point, it's just you're going to get a better machine. You know, with like a Creality or any Cubic or Photon, any of those. You know, whereas you're going to spend 3 times as much and get a Bamboo.
Yeah. Okay. And thank you, Don Musilli. That was. It's always I always love your perspective, and I learned something. I learned something new. A very non-technical person like me, it gets fascinated and learns something new every time I'm around you. When I'm at your place or something, he's always got something new to show me that he's working on. Was it one time I went over there? You were working on. So I was looking at the like electric boat motor or something that you had there. You were grinding on that thing somehow, trying to get that thing to work, and it's really cool when you go into or Don McCauley, same thing. You walk into his I call it his laboratory. You go in there, and there's monster figures around you. There's telescopes. It's like then you see like he reminds me of those stock traders with 4 different screens side by side. But then it's funny because. And Musilli, you can relate to this a little bit, but we're so digital. But I pointed to Don's drafting board. It looks like the old drafting board that even I learned on in high school. We took drafting, and I think I remember you telling me, Don McCauley, that I said you still use that thing in this day and age, and you said something like, "Yeah, I do." That's where a lot of this thing starts, just by hand, and then it goes to digital and everything else. The creation starts right there from your mind to that board. I think it's probably if that board can talk, it'd probably have a great story, McCauley.
I'm sure it's been around for close to 20 years now, but no, a lot of and that's what I think a lot of the issue with a lot of the education is. It's there's a misstep. There's a missed step in between the digital, like Musilli was saying, most of the kids are digital, but they missed out on all the essentially analog truths that come before the digital
Right.
Yeah.
digital answers to those analog questions. Essentially, it's like, why is it done this way? Well, it's done this way because of this and this and that, and a lot of the kids that I taught, it was interesting because they didn't understand file directories in computers. They're like, oh, well, when I download the file, where does it go? I'm like,
Hmm.
you go into your C drive, then you go in blah 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 blah. And they're like, well, what's that? They're like, isn't it in my downloads? I'm like, yeah, but where's your downloads exist? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, how do you find anything? And it's like, well, this
Sure.
exists because of this, and this exists because of this. So if
Wow.
you really want to go back and understand everything from this beginning, you'll get the full picture. But if you're only looking at it small chunk,
Yeah.
you're only going to understand, yeah, that history of that chunk, but you're not going to understand the why of that chunk in the entire collective.
Good point.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
a
that-
very good point.
Very good
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
That separates, not to be sexist, the men from the boys, a lot of that, because some people can never even get to that chunk level to build upon that, if you're following me. And that's just
Well,
where people's skill sets are. But if you're missing that component there you're talking about, will it ever come back? It seems to me, I think I told you guys the real quick story was when I was taking math classes at night to try to finish up my second degree after work. And the math teacher at that time, and I'm going back more years than I want to say, was a very brilliant guy, even teaching a subpar mathematician like me how to do things with pre-calc and things like that, getting me through that. And he was saying that he said, Joe, I don't think that we're going to be doing the old, the conventional or the manual adding, subtracting, division that we learned, plus signs, minus signs. I go, you got to be kidding. He goes, the calculators do it now. There's a big debate in education. Back then, do we even need to teach the kids that kind of fundamental, doing it by hand without a calculator? Just take them right to the calculators and take them to maybe a higher level of math that I would never even attempt. Pre-calc, calc 2, calc 3, calc physics, that scared me, that stuff. But my point is that I don't know where it ended up with kids. You guys, Casey and Don, you have younger kids still. I don't know what they're teaching now. We're going to find out, I think, in this show eventually. But back to the point here is that what are they missing? It sounds like to me, Don McCauley, we're missing a step in there somewhere.
well, there is. So,
Yeah.
just like what you were saying with, order of functions, how are the kids going to know who want to code, a video game or an app for a phone? They're not going to understand what order to put the, linear algebra in because they don't understand order of functions or, and that's what it's all based on. You can't get to step 10 without steps 1 through 9. Yeah, you can kind of fumble through, but you're not going to fully understand the entire process. And that's why
Yeah.
you've gotten to step 10. So, and it's kind of, that goes back to kind of like search for knowledge or, like now we can put it into a computer and have literally all of the world's knowledge at our hands. Whereas, 2000 years ago, somebody had to literally climb a mountain to find out an answer to one question. And there's not that search anymore. I don't see that drive to go that 2,000-mile trek or up a mountain trek. They won't
Even
even
down
type
the
it in.
street.
Right? Yeah.
I'd be interested if we can get maybe some good educators on with us in the future to get their thoughts, even if they don't have the answers. What is in their thought process about how to get from A to D or E? You know what I mean? Sometimes it's baby steps to do this with things going so fast, but maybe some of them, their game, maybe they're on top of their game too. You got some big picture people who can actually do stuff. They might maybe I've heard that they're behind, and I've heard this about Northport, where I live, that they're behind in tech, but I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe we can find out. Case, were you going to say something there?
So yeah, I know during COVID they released when they did remote learning, laptops were just sort of released on schools and students, and this sort of remote work environment. And I think from what I've been able to observe and the talks that I've had with people at school, there was no real structure to it. Everybody was just sort of given this technology and go, they were told make it work. So, like Don was saying, this fundamental lack of understanding about the foundations of how things work, like a directory or drives, I think that is a big problem that's going to lead to a lot of chaos. Because if you don't understand how things work and things are emerging so rapidly, we kind of don't know what that looks like. And I was asking myself the question the other day. All right, justify school. Just for my own, for my own satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
We have a device now that you can ask it anything and it gives you the answer back, which, justifying why you would go through the way that we've been doing school for as long as I've been alive, becomes very tricky. I don't know what the purpose of it is in its current format. If it's just to learn all these historical facts or learn math, when you have something now that fills pretty much every one of those needs. You need to know what the answer to your homework is. Well, you can take a snapshot, it'll scan the page and give you all the answers. So I think the way in that we're teaching probably has to change dramatically. And I don't know what the answer is, but I get the gut feeling that we should be teaching kids how to solve problems, teaching kids how to think critically, bringing logic back in instead of, purely emotional. They have this emotional social learning. I think we've veered off the course of being a forward-looking nation, and everything's just sort of all over the place. And we have all this technology now, and people are going through the motions without really understanding why or what we're doing with it. It's just
going at light speed, trying to get shit done.
and it's a challenge. I really stumped myself on going, all right, justify school. And I don't think I can do it for myself. I think back to my own schooling and go, well, what do I actually use today that I learned in school? Obviously reading, reading is important. Some knowledge of history is important. Mathematics, I think doing the problems by hand and developing that skill was good for critical thinking. But we've sort of, we've thrown computers into the mix, and we're still trying to do that, those old methods of learning, which I don't think are exercising the right parts of the human brain. So
and I'd really be curious. We're very much in talking about the United States where we live and stuff. Don's more global than I'll ever be. He understands the technology around Europe and China. But I wonder if just think about China just for a second here. Are they going through the same thing? They can throw a lot of people at something. Well, they graduate down probably 400 to 1 engineers here in the U.S. just on sheer numbers. But are they struggling just as much as we are? We can go, you touched on social. We don't have to talk about that today, but social, we're teaching some things, in my opinion, that don't need to be taught. And I know from everything I've heard, in China, they don't care about that stuff so much, the emotional stuff. They go right into teaching the technology and operations of what has to happen. And that can present a leg up too. But I anticipate, and Don Musilli for a second, I anticipate they struggle as much as we do. We got 4 pretty smart people here right now. We're all still scratching our head about where's this going? For again, back to the teaching and young kids.
If you look at the statistics, first of all, on the college side, just a note on this. 80% of the kids that graduate from college do not go into the field in which they got a degree.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Holy
only 20%. It's been like that for a long time. It's really crazy. But yeah, so if you go into, I mean, humanities, nobody goes into that anymore unless they really have a lot of money, don't want to do
There's
anything
a
else.
good example right there. Yeah,
But if you look at the Eastern European countries, India, China, a lot of their kids go into engineering, and they start early, very early.
Yeah.
My wife's son is in Japan, and her granddaughter goes to school with those kids. It's very different. They listen, they pay attention. They're doing math before they're walking. They're extremely talented people in that area, and they're very focused. And I think that's a word that we've lost. We're not very focused, and Don made a good point about that. We've got this. Our field of focus has gone so wide that we're not really sure what to pick. When in reality, we should go back to what we did in the beginning, which is be very focused on something. And yes, now that we have ChatGPT and all the AI technology, it can help us in those fields. It can be beneficial to us. It's just finding the right people. And don't forget, the teachers coming out of college today are just as neophilical in technology as the kids are, right? They're coming out at 25, 26, 24. You know, I mean, they're a generation of digital people. So they don't have that background either. So in those other countries, they do a lot of that. They are very, very rigid, and that's why companies like Crusoe, which is based in Prague, Czech Republic, those guys do an awful lot of work because they're all mechanical. The Chinese the same way. India, all those kids going to college and becoming engineers and doctors. Look how many Indian doctors you have in the U.S. I mean, you look at the field of medicine. So, we have changed the process, not because we want to, because we have to, because we don't have anybody that can do the things that Don mentioned, is to go back to those analog days. And like I said, if I have a kid say, I said to a kid, I'd like you to create and print a gear. And he says, what's a gear? Right? So
that's a problem.
what gear is, right? So if you don't have a point of reference, you have no way to really utilize that. And I think you can question that, but the reality is, because of the time lag, which is getting shorter and shorter, we can't really question that anymore. We have to just do something and just reach and change it. Changing the educational system, and Casey's right. I mean, I don't know what you would do. It's you have to have this process interrupt that just stops something and start over again. But you need somebody and some groups to do that. And
and another thing too is, and don't forget that, like when I grew up in industrial Rust Belt, Michigan, right around the car companies and stuff like that. But people today, younger people, want to be entrepreneurs. We were brought up to, my grandfather worked for Chrysler. My other grandfather worked for Chrysler. My grandmother worked for Chrysler. My dad worked for Chrysler, or they worked for Ford from time to time. I worked with them in the summers on the assembly lines in order to get money for college. When fall came around, because they would sneak me into those jobs, and there was something. It was the way you were bred. But then nowadays, you talk to a lot of young people. They want to start their own companies. My dad went to work for Chrysler for 32 years and retired out of there. So did my grandpa. So did my other grandpa. You don't do that anymore. It's very rare that you can stick with a company. There's mergers, acquisitions. And I talked to my son, who has one kid now in college, one in high school. And they, one wants to be a nurse, but the other one wants to be an entrepreneur in IT in some fashion. And so do her friends. The kids congregate with the same kind of friends a lot of times, and they don't think about working, for a company. They're young, but they don't think about working for a company 10, 12, 15 years. They'll do some kind of company on their own. And that's taken hold too, because there's no guarantees you'll ever be with a Chrysler for like so many years like my family was. That's almost unheard of nowadays.
I think the days of those companies are over. Where you can really have generations at a company. Now everybody's sort of looking at how do we maximize efficiency? How do we save money? This larger organism absorbs the smaller ones. You know, that seems to be the way of the world now. The Lockheed Martins buy up a whole bunch of small companies. The Raytheons buy them up, and you've got a lot of big guys that swallow these companies whole. And in their world, if you don't fit in with them, then you're out. And they sort of become little microcosms of small countries in and of themselves. They have their own culture, which is, I've been part of a merger that Lockheed bought, and it was a very different mindset than the company that they purchased. We made a product that we sold for a price, whereas they operated on this idea of a contract vehicle. And they couldn't understand how a product had a price with a markup. It was more like, well, what program are you on? And if you do this and allocate these resources, you can make 10 times the amount. So it's a very different business model. It was actually kind of shocking to see the difference between a small business and a huge mega corporation like that.
I went through that when I was with EDS for 14 years, and HP bought them out, Hewlett Packard. What a culture shift that was when they came in. The first thing they did is they unloaded a lot of us right out of the gate. And they bought us for our IT services expertise. And in my opinion, threw out some of our best managers and stuff that could drive that train, brought in their own people that, I'm being biased, but didn't measure up to the EDS people that were making money and all that kind of stuff. This was after Ross Perot was gone. He had sold that company. But by the same token, mergers, acquisitions, I was with Symantec in Silicon Valley, and they split us right in half with a company named Veritas. They told me, oh, well, you got two choices. You can go to Veritas or you can go to Veritas. I said, you know what? I'll go to Veritas. And that's how I kept my job when Symantec split us up.
Backup exec.
That was a little easier because we were all Symantec at that time, and they kept the people in place. They just cut it in half because of the operations, the way they wanted to do things. But mergers, acquisitions, I can understand why young people are thinking about themselves and becoming entrepreneurs in some fashion, or following people around them that have become successful entrepreneurs or got something going. When I was in Silicon Valley, that's like another culture. I mean, it really is. There's so much going on there. Tech, obviously it's tech in Mountain View. I was spending a lot of time there in Mountain View, like a different world. And like we were talking earlier today, the money that's spent over there. In fact, at that time, Google owned Symantec's building there where we were. It was kind of incestual the way these companies were together, and they all copied off each other with the way they did things. But they're the cutting edge of technology. I can't believe where our country would be without Silicon Valley. It's just amazing to me. As weird as it is in my Midwest background, if you will, it's just incredible. It was like culture shock to me, the way all these young entrepreneurs are running around with these incubators and ideas and all kinds of things. And I'm going like, whoa.
But are they?
I'm not in Michigan.
Are they the ones that are actually coming up with the ideas, or is it the kid in the garage that has this idea because he followed this one string of ideas because somebody else didn't teach it, and then he said, well, what if I did this? And then somebody from Silicon Valley comes in with a boatload of cash and says, hey, I like your idea. Here's all the money. Now I own it.
Don, you hit it on the head, because when I was a buyer at Symantec, which became Veritas, it was still the same department that I went to. They moved some of my suppliers and stuff over to where I was buying from the mom and pop shops that were Symantec, and later on it was HP. But these companies, when they were developing new functionality for an application that they wanted their customer to use, they would send me to a mom and pop company in BFE, Idaho or someplace, or maybe in California. A lot of them were in California, because they needed that one specific unique piece that a mom and pop shop who I get on the phone with and say, we're not in for the money necessarily. I'm going, we need this really bad. I've got a boss breathing down my throat right now that make a deal with these people. We got an application for, Ryder truck or something. That's one of our customers. And I'd sit there and go, what do you want? You know what I ran into sometimes? That's a very open source type of environment. They wanted to have connections to that we had with, let's say, IBM. We want to sell this to IBM, somebody bigger than you. We want to sell this to IBM. And can you, in the meantime, we're not so much, we'll deal with you, but can you put something out there with press releases that you're dealing with us to get publicity? This is like culture shock for me. I'm sitting there with my calculator going like, how much this is going to cost me? I got some boss pounding lumps on me to keep it within the budget. I don't know what the hell I'm buying. I don't know the functionality. We can't do it. Our company couldn't do it. That's when I ran into dealing with mom and pop shops, and some had leverage. But then, Don, you know this. Some of them, they're very much in it for, they're like purists, a lot of them. And I'm not saying every mom and pop shop, but they the open source publicity, they're purists in the sense that they got something unique. I call it proprietary right away because I'm thinking, if it's me, I'm protecting that. That's cool, at least until somebody else figures it out. But it was just amazing to me what you were saying there, Don. It kind of ran square into that when I got assigned to that job, where how many brilliant people working out of their garages and stuff. I'm sure a lot of them capitalized and ended up making money, but it was just a different experience. And then, what I learned is that, damn, these small cap companies I get excited about in stocks and stuff, the small cap companies drive this country's innovation. They really do.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. And I'll say that every industry works that way. I belong to a couple different forums where small time creators will post their work. And I had seen one, and this was, I want to say it was about a year ago, right before Amazon's Fallout show came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually products from the show or props from the show that this guy was just making out of his garage. This was a couple $1 billion production. And here's some guy making like the main prop in the show out of his garage. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
and I think you hit the nail on the head about the education is not, we're not putting our resources towards the education of the innovation of driving those ideas in the garage. We're putting forth the resources towards those corporations who are just gathering all those educational ideas and those innovations up to amass it for themselves, and then they just sit on these big think tanks and don't do anything with it, and then maybe we'll get our contract out of it. Well, that doesn't help everybody else. That doesn't help the country. That helps you. That helps your corporation make a boat ton of money, but it doesn't help Americans.
No,
So
that's the paradigm. It's hard to break. And I think you're onto something there too. Maybe that's something that we should bring up when we get the right people in these interviews. Bring them in for guests or something like that. I've never thought about it in that direction, but
the focus has to be people, not profits.
Yeah.
We're at profits, not people.
Yeah. So the old style, by the way, Chrysler doesn't exist anymore. It's now Stellantis.
Absolutely.
Italian company that bought them years ago, which is interesting. Which is part of what Don was talking about. But you're right. The Steve Jobs, the Bill Gates, the guys that started in the garage. One thing they had was they didn't know they couldn't do it, and they had the ability to think outside the box and really not have anybody pushing them. And they didn't have any financial goals to meet. They're just trying to get the technology to work. I mean, even Steve Jobs, if you remember the story when he came out with the iPhone, he had four components of the 5 components he needed. He started the iPhone knowing that in a year that new technology would be there so he could make the phone work. And that's how he thought. We don't have those kinds of people, especially in the higher ups of all these corporations.
Elon Musk said, I've seen this before. You guys might have seen it too. He goes, don't look now, but it won't be very long from now. You'll have 20 robots in your house. I remember Steve Jobs saying, I got this thing called an iPad here. You're going to have those on your kitchen tables in the real near future. And I went, really? Yeah, I had 2 of them. It was, those guys they're unique, but look where they take us. Look where the hell they've taken us to. You know, it's incredible. I think you're onto something, McCauley, right there.
I think about this a lot.
That's a hell of a paradigm to break, because let's go full circle back to where we started here, is that I look for my 3-month statements from Fidelity. I want to see my 20 companies. I want to see how they're doing, you know. And Joe, you can pick a couple of those stocks. I'm not going to pick them. You guys pick them. Every time I pick them, they don't do squat. You know, it's like it's just so pressure packed. You know.
I'm going to give you a real quick short story. So I started this business about 5 years ago. I didn't realize how much time I was going to have to dedicate to doing nonsensical malarkey, like putting stuff on Facebook or putting things on Instagram to try and drive my viewership or try and drive the marketability or some other nonsensical metric for my company. Whereas if I could spend my time doing the things that I believe that I need to be doing, which is taking the artwork and innovating it in a way of combining the art and the technology. But no, I'm having to spend my time making some silly Facebook video so that I can get somebody to see me, to give me a couple dollars so that I can spend my time really thinking about what's actually the business is about and some nonsense. So it's all these distractions that are pulling away from the core focus, the focus of things, whereas it should be the focus of the business to drive innovation, or it should be the focus of education to educate these people to want to seek out answers versus teaching them to act like a specific way or be a specific way. No, it's not the way it should be.
Yeah, and if you bring in business people from a big corporation, I always had this thing, junior achievement. If you guys heard of that, they do this. They used to have us volunteer to go to high schools. Some people were very heavily into it. The theory being that we were a business, we were, you know, within a viable business, corporation, whatever, doing, you know, positive things with our companies. Go in there and teach these kids what we do. With the bottom line, thinking that when you're going in there to teach, but you're also going in there kind of to recruit a little bit too. You know, you go into the high schools, you go in there enough. I found out from some of the people that were in that program that they were also sniffing around that, oh, this person could work for my company. This kid shows a lot of promise in this and that. But I always think that the businesses know what they need. Looking down into high school and looking down into junior high school, kind of like pro football or college football, they know where they have to recruit. They should know the skill set that's needed. But you know what? I'm confused. I'm not sure they do all the time. You know,
No,
it's so far ahead. They probably, maybe I'm wrong, but at a higher level, I don't know if they're thinking like us. You know, what we're talking about. I mean,
I don't think that they are. I mean, I can tell you my experience at Lockheed Martin was bizarre. It seemed to be very much how the goal wasn't necessarily how to understand how things worked. It was to sort of consume, and they had their own culture, which was very much keep in line. Don't question what the narrative set by the upper echelon was, and hey, we're going to, you know, profit overall. Any sort of friction, you were taking a big risk if you were to speak out against something that was going on that you felt was untoward. And there were lots of things at the company that I went, man, you know, if I were to set up a company in this same structure, I'd go to jail. So, and yet I'm sure there are legal loopholes that they've been able to create for themselves. So these, you know, the profits over people. I mean, I think, and I may sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I think that there appears to be a group of people that would like to replace people. You know, I think the combination of AI and robotics, it sounds dystopian, it sounds crazy, but I've heard people say that people will not be necessary in the future. And somebody that thinks like that isn't thinking about things like family, love, childhood, growing up. They're thinking about how much power, control, and wealth can I amass. And I think that America's done a real good job of pretending that doesn't exist, because there are a lot of people that are benefiting from that.
Let me read you something here, kind of along those lines, Casey, and stuff we're touching on here. This is an article I was going to talk about, if we can work it in. Just a piece of this article here that bugged me a little bit today. I'm just going to read it almost word for word. This paragraph here kind of speaks for itself, and I want to get your opinion on it. It does link with I think what the four of us are talking about. The difference between machine intelligence and human intelligence is that our intelligence is fixed, but that is not the case for machines, says Ihani Prasdarashini. That's a lady, by the way, a postdoctoral scholar at UC Berkeley with expertise in applied artificial intelligence and technology singularity, tells Popular Mechanics. In the cases of machines, she says, there is no end to it. You can always increase it, which is not the case for humans. Unlike our brains, AI systems can be expanded many times over. The real limitation is space to house all the computing power. I just don't agree.
Well, I'll tell you what,
what do you guys think?
One of the big areas now is quantum computers, right? And I'm afraid that they're not wrong. We only use about 10% of our brain, and so if you take all that knowledge that's out there and you're able to use the AI process, that's why if you look at Elon's robots and you watch what they do, and you look at the robotic systems, if you guys have been in manufacturing plants like automotive, there are very few people there. They're almost all robots.
Right.
Robots, right? And they
same with data centers.
And they can teach them very quickly. And they work 24/7. They don't have headaches. They don't have to go home. They don't take lunch breaks. It's not that it's good or bad. It's just different. And I think that's the problem. We look at the difference and we pick a side. We really shouldn't do that. We should look at the differences and say, what can we do with this? Is this something that I can utilize, and does it have some benefit, right? Two things are happening now. I just read an article about all these people coming back to work that were working remotely, and it's not working out very well. These guys are coming back, and they're having a hard time working in that environment. That tells you after a couple of years of being able to work on their own, in their own environment, they have a hard time working with people. I'm not sure what that means, but yeah, I don't know. I think Joe, there's not much limitation to what you can do with computer systems. And what I understand, all these big companies are making these huge computers to do all the computing, and they have wires to the AI for the AI to the robots, and they follow people, and they just basically mimic what they're doing, and they learn very quickly. So
yeah, and they do it better than repetitiously. They do it better too, because
it's just different. It's different.
Yeah, it just strikes me as, when you say our intelligence is fixed, that's when she lost me there a little bit, because I don't know, I could be full of crap, but the way I feel is I don't think human beings' knowledge has been nearly tapped yet. I really don't. Even put machines aside, and I can't discount that, the phenomenal things that are going with machine learning and stuff, but there's just so much more for us to think about. I think maybe I'm from a different era, but I just don't like to discount the phenomenal people out there that think of phenomenal things that could outdo a machine sometimes. I'm not talking about a repetitious task or something like that. So that struck me a little bit odd, guys. It just kind of they were talking about, the article was about this, getting deep into the singularity and what you were saying, Don, the super intelligent computer systems that we're driving for. I didn't know what the singularity was. You guys really know what it is? Here's the definition of what they say here, and I wasn't sure myself. I hear it thrown around a lot. Singularity is the way they say it is here is singularity is AI's point of no return. And they refer to, and I heard this before, they refer to an event horizon. The point of no return when we unleash super intelligent computer systems. Having said that, we've already seen signs of singularity in our lifetime, especially lately. There are games which humans can never win from machines, and that's a sure sign of a form of singularity right there. To offer some perspective, IBM's, and we're going back to 1997, their Deep Blue supercomputer was the first AI to defeat a human chess player. And they didn't just put Joe Schmo up there to bat. Deep Blue went against Gary Kasparov, who was the world champ at that time. I read a little bit more into that, even though it's old technology, but Gary won the first round in that chess tournament. And then there was some adjustments where it made to the Deep Blue computer to feed it more data, and that's when he lost in the second round. It took the engineers to tweak Deep Blue to throw more pure knowledge, pure power into the computer to defeat him. But my point is, those engineers were calling the shot when they started programming in that enhancement or whatever you want to call it to beat Gary in that tournament. You know, that one-on-one thing that they did. But I digressed into the singularity there and the reasons for it. I wasn't sure what it was, guys. I've heard it so many times, but now it makes sense to me. It's where the computers surpass us.
There was a movie, by the way, called Event Horizon that I saw many years ago, and it's really
They use that a lot.
Well.
Maybe that's spun off the movie. I never saw it.
Yeah, it was very interesting. I'm a big sci-fi guy, but yeah, the computers, with the quantum computing and the computer power, they can make decisions much faster. They can look at information and very quickly do something. That's why you're seeing a lot more. The military is using an awful lot of AI right now in some of the development of their weaponry systems.
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
doing an awful lot in the side of the computer side because of all the cybersecurity issues. Those are things that we, as humans, we don't have the capability of doing that quickly and multitasking. So they have that capability. So I think it's, and I really believe very strongly that when all the new technologies come in, we're going to be hiring more people, not less. I think there's a lot of things happening that require people with special technologies or techniques, education to fill in some of those voids.
That's what I want to hear.
I think that will happen.
I really do. I just don't know what it is yet. I don't think we know what we're losing yet, though, Don, to replace it. But that's the way technology is flowed since the first industrial revolution and long before that.
Yeah,
we were driving horses around that became buggies and then cars and stuff like that. Just a simple example.
Yeah, I mean, the Casey's involved in this all the time. He does all the IT stuff, and he certainly sees what's going on in those areas, and I'm sure he can make some comments about that.
Yeah, I look at it and think, will there still be people hired, highly specialized people? But let's be realistic here. There are a lot of people. I know a lot of people that are not capable of doing really anything with technology. Right. And with those manual jobs, it's one thing to have a machine that can perform a certain task and help human beings. It's another thing to have a machine that is capable of telling itself to do a multitude of tasks automatically better than people. And I think the people that control or that will have control of those systems aren't necessarily concerned with people getting jobs or people's well-being. And that's where I feel like this thing is happening really, really quickly, and it's different than a little bit of automation in a factory. We're talking about a phenomenal leap in computational power and abilities that we haven't seen before. That is sort of being forced on us, or I should say unleashed on us, and you don't get to opt out. And I think that's one of the fundamental differences. Everything that you use, you're sort of buying into some sort of licensing agreement. I think about the amount of robots in my house and the things that I've agreed to just by having them. I don't know where that leads, and I don't feel like it's good. I think
we're all a little bit apprehensive of, I'm using ChatGPT all the time
All the
for
time.
little things, and damn, that thing's on its game. It's really on its game, and it's scary because somebody told me the other day. She said that she refers to her ChatGPT as a her. She when she's talking to me, yeah, Chat. She told me this, and she blah blah blah. And then they were saying there was some stuff on TV about how people are getting, and this can go to a really way out degree, but getting familiar and friendly with the bot and confiding in the bot. The bot is seeing everything that you're asking and thinking, and then all kinds of things are spinning off of that. But it's sometimes I always try to be nice when I'm talking to ChatGPT. Thank you for checking this out for me. I'm going like, I'm talking to a machine, Joe. You don't have to kiss its butt. It's a computer, But that's just maybe my nature. But the thing of it is, it almost feels like it's a person with me sometimes. Honest to gosh, that's how it feels sometimes. And I couldn't envision that 10 years ago, guys. That type quick. It's just lickety split. Here's your answer. I'm going, oh, and a lot of it
But we
makes
had
sense.
that 10 years ago too, though. You just had to actually like search in the internet for it.
Yeah.
It wasn't given to you on a silver platter in 0.2 seconds.
Silver platter in 2 seconds. That's what blew me away when I started using it. Even a couple months ago, I go, damn, that was quick. I'm talking to about a 2019 Lenovo Yoga computer and ports, and all of a sudden, and I'm thinking, yeah, well, economically, I don't have to buy a new microphone. I'm going to get a new one. It comes right back and says, okay, your thoughts are right. You're trying to economize this, and I'm understanding what you're trying to do. I was just figuring it out, what I was trying to do. It took it to the next level where that thought that I would have reached, when I thought it through a little bit more, I'm not the quickest thinker in the world. That's right where I wanted to go. I even told Jane, I walked in her room and I said, hey, I got to tell you this, and I explained it to her and she goes, damn, it's quick too. Like you said, Don, it's very fast too.
Yeah,
so.
and the computer. I have a new Garmin, and this watch does everything except wash the dishes. And look how small that is, and how much power it has. It's just amazing. And your car has all the digital controls and all the chips that are in there. I know it's kind of scary. And there's another movie on TV that talked about AI and where it was going, and it is a little bit disconcerting. I think a lot of it is because we're not really sure where it's going to go. We understand where it is now. There are some concerns. Is robotics going to be the next big field? I think so. I think that if you look at the 4 or 5 companies that are in it, they're looking at next year, 2026, I understand, is going to be a huge year for robotics. And so you're seeing a lot of that money going into that field. And to Casey's point, I mean, there are a lot of menial task jobs out there, and maybe dangerous jobs where people shouldn't be there because they don't have the ability to react fast enough, where a robot could do that and do it more efficiently and more effectively. And is that good? Is that bad? So whether or not it takes away a job or creates a new job, I mean, somebody's going to have to dispose of all the robots. So somebody's going to have that business, right? So they're going to take all the little batteries out. I'm being facetious here, but that business has to be there. So, but I'm old enough to remember, the first computers that came out, and wow, were they crappy? I mean, and we had these 8-inch discs that we used to use, and I had my company, Pure Air Systems. We had a URL in 1995. I didn't know what to do with it because there was nothing to do on the computer. So it's very different. So I've seen that transition, but in the last couple of years, the transitions from AI was kind of got some traction 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, and then the last couple of years it's really expanded. Now there's nothing that I use that doesn't have an AI part of it. The Anycubic software has an AI app to it. If I go to Microsoft's got their AI app. Everyone's got their AI app. Safari's got theirs. No matter where you go, so it's become ubiquitous, right? It's everywhere and it's in everything. And and we have kind of accepted it to a certain extent because we use it. So sometimes you have to be careful about speaking out of both sides of your mouth at the same time. You know, I don't like this, but I'm going to use this. I don't like that company, but I like the fact of making money. So there's this yin and yang that goes on all the time, and that's why I say it's not really good or bad. It's just different, and I like to use that term because people want to poison something that may have been bad or may have been good before, but now it's changed. So and with the kids, I try really hard to get them to think outside the box. I don't let them download stuff anymore. They have to create their own stuff, something they can make, they can sell. And I tell you, the last couple of months, I've had a lot of my students now buying their own 3D printers. And it's amazing what they're doing with those. They're going back to the tangible world, holding something in their hand, which they haven't done before, which that aha moment, hey, I can actually make this. And so that's really important. I think Don can understand that. And sure Casey can too. So those are things that make me feel good about what I've done for the last 12 years, because sometimes I feel like I'm beating my head against the wall, you know, trying to get someone to understand this. But it's gratifying to see that. Also, I need to say this. You guys are amazing. I'm honored to be on the same show with you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. And I'm 76 years old. And I'm going to tell you, it's phenomenal to see what you guys are doing. So I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. I really didn't think it would be this good and exciting, because I'm looking forward to the next one we do. And I love the fact that we have kind of a loose agenda, but we go in different directions, because that's when I get the most value out of this, in my personal opinion. You know, but each one of us comes up with something from real life and something that we think of on the spot here. So I don't know. I like this team just the way it is. I'll say it's a team now, because we do collaborate well. And I think there's something for people to gain. And I've probably gone 6 minutes over an hour now. I know you guys got lives here. It is 8:45, so I want to cut you loose. Don McCauley, did you have dinner yet? Did you have dinner yet? Okay. I know.
Yeah, I ate earlier.
Last time I held you up out of your.
We were in Orlando, and we were like, oh, we had some dinner reservations. It ended up being a really nice place.
You were in Orlando for that one? Oh.
Yeah, we were dropping my son off for his big European trip. So
I thought you were right here in North Park at that.
No.
That's one of the upsides. You can do something from pretty much anywhere.
Yeah,
you know.
But I think the wife was after him, like, come on, let's go eat. We're in Orlando. Well, I appreciate it, guys, and let's do another one. I know, Don, you're leaving for a while. Maybe in a couple of weeks, let's reconvene, and maybe I can get a guest in to talk to us too, and solve world hunger or whatever we're up to here. It's fun, you know. So
well, I have a lot of teachers I know. I'm sure Don does too. So if you want somebody in that,
I will. Yeah, I'll reach out to you guys to see if we can get the right person just to try it among the four of us, and not to overwhelm, but bring in let's be selective for what we want to talk about. If you guys can help me with that, and hopefully they can react to the way we're pretty spontaneous here. we can shift directions real quick, and it sounds pretty intelligent to me from where I'm sitting. So anyway, I'm not fishing for compliments here. I'm just saying, guys. All right, I'll start the music, and you guys go ahead and sign off, and I'm going to sign off and appreciate
all right, gentlemen,
technical difficulties, and I'll catch you boys later, man. Okay.
All right, next time, guys.
Peace, guys.
Rock and roll.
Adios.
Adios.